introduce our speaker today in great detail because he will do so himself. Let me just tell you very briefly that Anjan Mukherjee was my classmate in IIT Bombay. He was the son of a professor, PC Mukherjee, who was professor in our own department, metallurgical. And we used to joke that see this gentleman Anjan Mukherjee, he has a very good life. He's son of a professor. He studied in the Kendriya Vidyalaya here itself in IIT campus. He will do BTech here. He will become a professor and live forever in in this campus itself. But probably that was not to be. And you will hear from him how he became a entrepreneur, innovator, and has probably gone around the world. So he will tell you himself. So as I told you, Anjan, we have Abhimanyu Raja, who's our founder director. We have Sai Hemant, who's also our founder director. We have on call here Rajesh,
Good evening, sir.
Senthil, who are our senior colleagues. And
Good evening, sir.
Senthil has, like me, worked for, more than 30, 40 years in Tata Group, and then later in later VSNL and then Tata Group. So I think we can start here. Anjan, over to you.
Okay, thanks, Harish. You've already put the notoriety in me upfront, so thanks for that. And let me let you on to a secret. When Harish told me day before yesterday that I need to speak on something, so I very humbly suggested to him, since he knows me from ages, I suggested the topic should be if I can, so can anybody else. He thought it was slightly radical, and he said, "Nee, nee, this is a serious audience. You should be, having that as a topic." I said, "Okay, you suggest." He suggested something like innovation and entrepreneurship and something like that. So I said, "Okay, whatever it is, I'll speak on that." So that was that, and that is where you get this very fancy name, innovation mindset to entrepreneurship. But let me tell you, we are all in the same boat in different professions, but that's that. And also, thanks for this opportunity for a very different reason. Normally, as entrepreneurs, you are running around with your daily routine and hardly ever get a time to pause and think what exactly are you all, what exactly are you doing. And this has actually given me a small respite from whatever I do on a regular basis and reflect back on what exactly we are doing. Uh, Whatever experiences I share with you, let me be very straightforward and you can say with all humility, tell you that each of us, whether he is an entrepreneur or doing whatever in life, has got so much of experiences and when such opportunities come to share with others, that's when you reflect that, my God, there is so much to learn from each other and there is so much to life than just running around and doing your own normal everyday stuff. What I have done in my life to be an entrepreneur is just not a regular template. In fact, each of us have got their own template, and we are unique in every which way there is to it. So let me start by telling you what exactly I do. You see this thing? This is a Maji Taraltec reactor, and this, when fitted in a normal borewell hand pump, you will get disinfected water instantaneously. What is unique about this particular device is it does not require absolutely any consumables. That is, no chemicals, no electricity, no membranes, no filters, no UV, actually, no nothing. And this works on the principle of a simple biomimicry inspired principle of physics. Actually, you can say Bernoulli's principle that when you shoot a jet of water, in a very high with a very high velocity, a cavitation bubble is formed, and once that collapses, it sends shock waves, which actually kills the microorganisms which are you know in the vicinity of that collapsing bubble. So what we have done is we have actually placed this reactor on the path of a flowing fluid, which is water in this case, as it rises up with the help of your hand power. And these bubbles are cavitation bubbles are created, and when it collapses, it actually kills the microorganism. So instantaneously, you will get microbe killed water, which effectively means that diarrhea, cholera, typhoid, and all these sort of microorganisms microorganisms which cause these are eliminated, and it will lead to much safer water. Vishesh, can you just show that small film? Vishesh, can you hear me? Yeah, the film, the Taraltec film. Not this one, not this one.
There are around 38 million cases of waterborne diseases in India, which actually results in 74 million workdays being lost.
There's no sound,
Groundwater
Vishesh.
is
Yeah, now.
There are around 38 million cases of waterborne diseases in India, which actually results in 74 million workdays being lost. Groundwater is used for potable purposes by close to around 400 to 500 million people.
I have to miss work for 2-3 days and my earnings comes to a standstill.
I realized early on that whatever product we came up with, it should not require consumables, and we came up with this Taraltec reactor. You have to just open 7 bolts from the top, takes less than an hour to do that, and you just retrofit it, just slide it into the riser pipe. We shoot jets of water, does not require any electricity or anything like that, can be hand powered by even a 60-year-old woman, and the bubbles which are created, they collapse at all points on the path of the flowing fluid and sends shock waves which lacerates the microorganism which otherwise would have caused diarrhea, cholera or typhoid and such like waterborne diseases. We have already impacted around 1 million users directly by providing safe water. So you can imagine game-changing effect on the health of India.
Taraltec Solutions, saving energy, saving life.
Hello. Hello.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you have basically seen what exactly we do, and you have a rough idea of what we have created. Now, very interestingly, this product has been absolutely pioneering device, and we got the national award in 2020, National Startup Award for Water in 2020. Been a winner of India Innovation Growth Program, which is for inventions coming out of India twice in 2011 and 2017. I was taken by the Prime Minister to Israel to show the show this technology to the Israelis, who are the undisputed water champions, and very, very, I'm sort of actually taken aback and proud that this particular device has been displayed in the Deutsche Museum in Germany as a engineering masterpiece, whatever it is, whatever it means. So basically, that's what I do. But how did I reach here? Because I have absolutely no background in any of it. So let me start. Like Harish said, my dad was a prof in the campus in IIT Bombay. My mother was also a teacher. So you can imagine that business or anything to do with business was really a dirty word, and none in our family were actually forget about in any profession. They were all teachers. My grandfather, my great grandfather, my father, mother. I mean, the whole lot. So you can imagine what sort of a background I actually had for anything to do with business. But then I mean, like many campus kids, I got into IIT and was Harish's batchmate for 2 years. And then I did quite the unthinkable. I quit because I thought this is not what I want to do in life. And during those times, quitting IIT was not like today. There was absolutely no glamour associated with it. It was actually all the people said that you're the biggest nut we've ever seen. I said, okay, I mean, that's it. I mean, but I clearly followed what I thought was good for me. And I went on to become a marine engineer, which is like sailing on ship all over the world and working with my own hands in all types of machinery which is there on board ship, which is like actually a moving city. So, and then I was actually sailing continuously on board ship all over the world. And at one point of time, my company said, you can't be doing this. And they forcibly told me, you get off now, get off the ship. It's not good for you. So when I actually got off the ship, I had close to 18 months of paid leave on me. And I didn't know what to do with those 18 months. And just for a lark, I appeared for CAT, which I had just, you know, filled the form for, thinking, it's for hi-fi people. And where a marine engineer without any contact with outside world can ever think of going there. But, mistakes do happen. And mistake did happen. I got in to IIM Bangalore. And after 2 years, I was with ITC, which was like quite a prized job at that moment, at that point of time. And I was in sales, which I had never in my life done. But it gave me a very, very interesting exposure to what sales and marketing is all about. And then I was with a Norwegian multinational. In fact, at that time, it was not in India. It was the heady days after the 1991 budget of Manmohan Singh. And India was opening up, and that company wanted to come into India and set up a manufacturing base as well as a supply base. So they told me, you go all over India trying to locate suppliers. That was, by the way, the world's biggest marine supplies company, which you won't believe it, more than 1 lakh products in their catalog. They were basically a sourcing company which was getting into manufacturing also. So they wanted to try out the India market, which is what I did. But it gave me absolutely a brilliant insight into what was exactly Indian manufacturing all about. But when the time came for them to actually set up base, form the company in India, Norwegian came, they appointed a Norwegian over me. And I said, okay, like this is what is going to be the real corporate world. And I said, I've learned my lesson. Let me now do whatever I do on my own. So this was 1998, and I basically quit the corporate life. Now, what to do after that is was a big question, and since I was an MBA and from a premier institute, like everyone, you also became a management consultant and got some very, very interesting projects which came my way. One of them was actually at that time the JNPT, Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust. They were converting their second bulk terminal to a container terminal, and it was at that time India's biggest PPP. It was just some 200,000 crore project or something like that. I don't recall the name also, but I was a pointsman for one of the consortiums, international consortium. So I basically sat on all the meetings and did various other things for them, which again gave me a ringside view of how business is got done in India. And I after that I did some small scale financial modeling, some trading in spares. I mean, whatever basically came my way. But then in 2004, one day I just got up with totally sweat all over me, saying, think at 4 o'clock in the morning, and just thought, what am I doing in life? It's totally wastage of time and wastage of whatever little I have learned. So I said, no, from now onwards, I will follow my whatever I think I should be doing. And that's, all in a span of, say, around half an hour in the morning, 4 to 4:30. In 2004, I realized I actually love engineering. And so what, I had quit IIT and I said that I will never get into engineering again. But I mean, not to theoretical engineering again. So I said, let me try. And for the first time, I actually bought books which were there, the basics in the 2 years of IIT, which I had, somehow I was not interested. I just went through the motions. But I bought all those books again and started studying in right earnest. And that's when I discovered the IIT library also. I stayed just outside IIT. So that was a huge advantage. So I was actually parked myself at the IIT library, trying to understand what is this engineering all about, and I actually fell in love with it. Being a marine engineer, there was a very peculiar problem which was there at that time. It's called the ballast water problem. Now, ballast water is when a ship goes from one point to the other without cargo. You have to take in water to stabilize the ship. Now, when you take in the cargo, you throw out this water, which you throw out in obviously the port of loading, which is alien to the port of the previous port of discharge. And this water has microorganisms, which, when in the alien scenario, they go and kill the local ecosystem, because typically, like all migrants, they are more hardworking and they go and they destroy the local ecosystem, which is a huge problem because that destroys the fishes and the fishing community, plus all sorts of marine organisms die. So the great coral reef of Australia has been totally devastated by this. One of the reasons is the ship's ballast water. So there was an international regulation which was coming in, which said that you shouldn't be doing this thing and you should kill the microorganisms before you actually release it out at sea. So, this was very, very big even at that time. Now it's also very, very big. It's, there are more than 2.5 lakh ships. I don't know the exact number now, but which will fall into this particular category of needing a ballast water system for killing microorganisms. But there was no technology which was available. So I said, let me also try what is there. I mean, as it is. I mean, a guy who can quit IIT just for a lark. You can imagine, I mean, only a person like that, a crackpot like that, will even think of competing with the big companies. And there were internationally big companies like GE and the Alpha Lavals and the whole this, and they were backed by their own governments. So for me, it was like say, hello, let's try what is there. As it is, nothing is going to happen anyway. But very interestingly, one thing led to the other, and we did have a system, which was at that point we had applied to the International Maritime Authority, and they said this is the most probable solution for solving the ballast water system. You can imagine what it is, but you will be even more shocked to know how that happened, because that is what is I would say which led me to being an entrepreneur. And let me tell you that let me break the thing up about what is all this innovative mindset as I see it. Everyone has got their own what do you call way of doing things, but I think that it basically means three things. One is follow your heart, keep observing, and enjoy the process. So let me tell you very briefly on what I actually mean by these three things. Follow your heart. Well, I already told you I quit IIT after 2 years because I had stopped enjoying it. So that was it required a humongous lot of self conviction at that time, because being a campus kid, and that too in IIT with a dad as a prof, it was going against the whole grain of the ethos of the campus, and so I did it. The next was in 2004, which I said studying engineering all over again, which I did at the cost of just breaking off from my previous career, which was actually I had gone into more of the management side of the thing. I got back into totally the engineering side of whatever was happening with the last water. So that was follow your heart and your gut feel. Next is critically observe. And here, two things which actually changed my life happened. Let me tell you, how many of you know what a Mobius strip is? Obviously, you will not be able to answer, but yeah, is there anyone who knows what a Mobius strip is?
Mobius, no.
A Mobius strip is, when you take a strip of paper or anything and you turn it once and you join it, it becomes a continuous surface. I hope I have made sense. Yeah, yeah. You just flip it to one side, and it becomes a continuous piece where if you run a pen, it goes through both the sides. So this is there's a typical property of a Mobius strip. Now, how it actually helped me in my life is very interesting, in the sense, like I told you, I was chief engineer on board ship, and I used to do various runs. One of them was carrying iron ore from Vizag to Japan. This was, I'm talking of the 80s. And this, when you load the iron ore, it was done by a conveyor belt, which is very typical. There's a long conveyor belt which you pour ore at one end, and it just discharges it, carrying it on the belt, and discharges it on the inside the hold of a ship. So I was just watching that particular conveyor belt, and it suddenly struck me that after all, it's a conveyor belt. Why should it be dirty on both the sides? That is the top side and the bottom side. So curious me, I just said, this is something weird. Why does this happen? So I went all the way, and these conveyor belts are in parts. It's not that this one, because they run for kilometers. But the last leg was a small this thing. So I went to see, and I realized, oh no, this is this is a Mobius strip, and and it's a Mobius strip because then the wear is same on both sides of the belt, because after all it's iron ore it is carrying. And if it was only one side, it would have got blown off on one side. So it is just to prevent that. They have made it into a Mobius strip, and so that both sides are equally they get worn. I thought this was absolutely a genius idea, but then it had absolutely no what do you call application as far as I was concerned. But close to some, I would say, some 8 years later, I used this particular phenomena for a totally different thing, and which is what you know what I meant by saying being critically observant and being able to apply in different domains the knowledge you've gained. Now, what was the different domain I applied it? Please don't laugh at this. My wife my fiance at that time used to write these long letters. And here I was used to, typical engineer brain, you just write some 10 lines and 5 lines or whatever and give it off. So she said that this is no scene. I write to you some 3-4 pages and you finish off in some 2-3 lines. So I got this idea that I'll write it on a Mobius strip. So which became like in a continuous loop. She was initially very angry, but then she thought that okay, this fellow has got some small akal, and this also played a role in ultimately she choosing me because it's always the case.
So, with the smaller idea, you caught a bigger fish.
So, where the girl chooses the boy, it's never the boy chooses the girl. But then, anyway, so that's what happened. So, application of domain knowledge in one thing and putting it into use in totally something else is, I thought, was a very interesting core skill to have. The other thing also was very interesting. When I was at IIM, one of my very, very close pals, so we both realized that we have done nothing in life after the first year, and we were both moping in the hostel during the summers. We were both there doing a summer training. And when you're spiritually elevated, a lot of ideas come to you. And then we were taught how to locate a factory. What are the things to be taken, and one weighted average of this and that, and was done. By which time I had my fiance had agreed that chalo, this guy is okay enough, but that guy hadn't found anybody. So I said, chalo, let's try to use the model for location of a factory to location of a girl. How to actually identify a girl with this model. So we did all sorts of things and made into a proper mathematical model, and the height should be so much, and this that, and so ultimately when our girl was identified, and she was a batch junior to us. So the whole batch was told that this is what we have done, and she's the girl, and so the whole batch then conspired to hook that girl for him, and that's what happened. So again, a cross-domain, what do you call,
Expertise.
expertise was. So all these sort of things were going on in life, and then let me get back to how this ballast water thing happened, because as you would have seen by now, I was not trained for anything. I'm totally self-taught. So this during one of my projects which I was doing before 2004, I was told by the Director General of Shipping that no one knows anything about the shipbreaking yards which is there in India, and they thought that I'm slightly academic, so can you go and find out what is happening? And they also told me that they will not pay me anything or anything. I said, okay, I mean, if it's okay. I just took it as a challenge that let me do some good turn for India. And I started collecting data, and that's when I realized that there is absolutely no data. And it was a 10,000 crore industry in early 2000, and which was like huge. And what was happening was they were using that steel to make the saria. And that Gujarat earthquake, which is what I've been told to believe, that one of the biggest issues of buildings crashing at that time was the sariyas were just made by the steel from the shipyards with a broken this thing from the shipbreaking yards. So they were not pre-tensiled or anything. So that's where most of the buildings collapsed. And they wanted the government wanted to put a huge duty, but they didn't have any data. So they said, you go and find out what is this thing. Then we will present it to the interministerial committee, and they will do something about it. So I said, okay, this is great, and I got a letter from the government. That's the only thing they gave me, that you can go and talk to anybody. And so I said, okay. So others would have done a desk research, but at that time there was no net of any consequence. So whatever I could find from here and there, I did. And then I actually went to Alang and stayed with the workers for 7 days in their hut, and to figure out firsthand what exactly was this whole shipbreaking thing. And sure enough, I got a lot of data, people, and that is totally ruled by mafia. So I got to know all these mafia dons there, and it was a very interesting thing, and firsthand coming to know so many things. So I actually made a full report, and that was presented to a lot of people. I also got a chance to present to the interministerial committee and things like that. And no one paid me anything for it. But everything you do, whether you do free or something, you get something out of it at the end of the day, especially when you're not bothered about it. So much later in life, another say 5, 6 years later, this particular thing, since I had done it free for the Director General of Shipping, they said there is an Israeli company which was looking for someone to go around all the research labs in India and figure out who is doing work on this ballast water problem. So I said, yeah, this is a great job. I have a Bharat Darshan and go through all the research labs and figure out what is going on. So they had a particular, they wanted to combine 3 platforms for this ballast water treatment. One is electrochemical, which was like electrolysis of seawater to have by electrolysis so that you get chlorine for disinfection. Also, they will couple it with UV. And the third is the filtration. And see who's doing work in all these basically these 3 domains. So I happily toured India, figured out what is happening. But, this was such an eye-opener, what exactly happens in the research labs and who is working. Because my dad was a prof, so I knew a lot of people through the people who were still there in the campus, to figure out who's doing actual work and who's, basically there to do nothing. So that gave me a lot of insight into what was going on in India. But this platform, which they had said, was really unworkable, because that I figured out because I was chief engineer on board ship, and I knew what are the constraints there. If you're ashore, you have unlimited space and you have unlimited resources. But on a ship, it is all very cramped, and if you have to retrofit, it becomes even more difficult. So at the end of it, I told these Israeli company that what you're saying is theoretically possible. It is possible to do it on land, but to do it on board ship is actually impossible. So they also lost interest, and I also said, okay, now this phase of life over. Let's go around. But this actually kept playing on my head. And one day I just said, "Gee, let me try to see what can actually be done with this." And I said, let me ask, many of you will be knowing Professor Sukhatme, who was the director of IIT Bombay, and he was our neighbor for maybe 30 years. I knew him very, very well. And so I went and asked him, who's the person who, I can go to or something like this. I want to figure out what is to be done. Again, it was just an academic interest on my part, by which time, it's like totally a pipe dream. I mean, why would anyone trust me to do anything of this kind? He said, you go and speak to Professor V.D. Kulkarni. He was the deputy director of National Chemicals Lab at that point of time, and a very, very revered scientist with more than, I don't know how many patents he had, but very approachable and very good. So I said, okay, that is and he told me, Professor Sukatme told me that if anyone can, give you insights, it is him. So I said, okay, I will go and meet him. Can you get me an appointment with him? Because why would he meet a person who has got no scientific background, nothing? So he said, yeah, I'll tell him. So I told him, and he immediately set up a meeting with me, and I went there. So when I was driving down from Mumbai to Pune, I was wondering, I mean, he's such a big guy, and what do I talk to him? I have absolutely no idea. And my knowledge, which I also, by the way, told Harish, it will not last me for more than 5-10 minutes if I start speaking of actual, genuine content. So I was actually, you can say, honestly scared that, he will go and see through me, and then it will become a disaster, and forget about my name getting spoiled. It will spoil Professor Sukatme's name, which was the bigger worry. So anyway, so I landed up there, and by the time I was made to sit in his ante room, I had gone totally blank. I mean, what I had to speak, I had forgotten. So just to distract me, I picked up the first magazine which I thought was, the most non-intimidating, and because obviously the deputy director of NCL, his ante room will not have filmfare and magazines like that. It would have all the scientific journals, old scientific journals. So the most friendly of them was Nature, and I picked that magazine up, and when I flipped the page, the first page to open was a scholarly article on the snapping shrimp. And I said, okay, chalo, this is something, it will probably make sense to me, because all others were full of equations and all integration and differential signs, and I really was totally lost. So this was the one which had none of that. So, so I started reading, and I found a very interesting thing in that the snapping shrimp actually kills its prey by shooting a jet of water, and once that bubble, which is because of with Bernoulli's principle, it lowers the pressure when the ambient pressure goes below the vapor pressure of the fluid. In this case it is water. A cavitation bubble is formed, and once that collapses, it sends a shock waves and it kills the microorganisms which are there next to it, which is its prey. I got totally, totally intrigued. I said, wow, this is a guy, he is doing something which is like nature at its very best. And immediately my brain cells started working. I said, if I can mimic this, then, probably something will happen. So by which time I had clean forgotten what I wanted to speak to Professor V.D. Kulkarni. So when I was called, I was totally bubbling with this idea of, shooting jets of water and killing microorganisms. So I went and told him, sir, will this work? I came to tell you that if this particular thing will work. He was totally flabbergasted. He said, I mean, this was such a new technology at that time. Probably that was the first article which came out on this particular phenomena, and people had not really thought over it and what are the uses of it. So when I told him that this is what it is, he said, "Yeah, yeah, this is very good idea. You all should work on this and whatever, whatever." So immediately called the CFD expert of NCL, who was a Bhatnagar Award winner, and he's called some 2-3 other people. He said, "See, look at this guy, what he's talking about, and things like that." And so I was at one level very pleased. At the other level, I was actually the correct word is, you know, to use a very colloquial language, shitting bricks. Because what to do, I don't know anything more than what I had read maybe 10 minutes back. So anyway, So that is what happened, and that was the genesis of ballast water treatment. And at that point, when we came out with this particular solution, it was told by the IMO in the international journals that this is the most probable solution for ballast water problem and things like that. I went for government support, and in their own wisdom, government being government, I did not get the required support, and ultimately I had to drop it. So that was the long and short of this ballast water thing. But this thing we tried in various, this particular technology was already existing. We tried it for various other things, like for wastewater treatment, for increasing the biogas yield. By the way, in 2011, and I got the national award for startups from India, BST and all, for this particular technology for increasing the biogas yield. But I couldn't sell it because of other reasons. So that also gave me an insight. And one of the biggest insights which came to me was taking science to technology is actually quite simple because it depends on you. Technology to the product is also probably quite simple, but product to the business is a real game. And that is the most difficult, because then all others come into play. And till the product, it can be done in probably an academic institution, but taking the product to the market, you need the skill sets which are totally lacking. And that's why very many of the real science projects fail. Anyway, this ballast water thing and all the other sort of things which I tried, most of it had partial success to actually complete failures, but it was a great learning experience. And the most important thing which made me go on and on and on is and the third thing after follow your heart and observe critically is you should enjoy the process. If you don't enjoy the process, you cannot really do anything, and then something or the other ultimately happens. In my case, by mistake, I had landed up in a village for the first time in my life. This was just 7 years back, and I saw a lot of these kids who were stunted, and I was wondering, I mean, why is this something like that? And that's when I got to know that diarrhea is a big problem. In the cities, I mean, we all drink purified water, even if it is coming from the tap with a municipality giving you so-called good clean water. We always use a purifier which has UV filtration, whatever. And what happens in the villages is they drink straight groundwater, and that groundwater has typically got microbial contamination. That is the E. coli. E. coli is the killer there, because wherever there is water, the cattle congregate there, and the human excreta is not so much of a issue, but the cattle excreta is a big problem, because you cannot stop cattle from coming close to that, and that E. coli contaminating this thing. So diarrhea is a huge problem. In fact, you'll be shocked to know that there are around 38 million cases of waterborne diseases in India, and more than 30 million is because of diarrhea. And there was no solution for something like that, because groundwater is the primary source of potable water all over the world. In fact, 2 billion people suffer from this worldwide, which is 1 in 3.5, which is like a ridiculously crazy number. So I said, okay, now this is there, and when something like this happens to the people who have really nothing, it really moves you at some level. I said, why don't I try this particular technology by making this reactor? Up till now, we were working for the big corporates who probably would have saved a rupee or two here and there, which made no difference to anybody. And I thought if this can be done, it will be a real impact at the grassroots, and it will do something good to people. So you can imagine, made this gap, and like I told you, it is gone places. Lots of accolades coming from all over, and most importantly, when you visit a village where you have already fitted it, uh, the type of reception which you get really moves you to tears. And they say that there is no more of diarrhea, or it is dramatically reduced. I cross-checked with the local medical pharmacy, and they also say that the sales of these diarrhea causing medicines have come down. So these are really, it gives you joy at a very, very different level altogether. So here I am, with absolutely no training, no nothing, and done something which is probably useful to the world. And so let me go back to where I started. And I said that it is actually anybody can do it. And the topic should be, if I can, then so can anybody. And I'm concluding with that if I could do this with whatever limited success, anyone can do it. It doesn't require any expertise of any kind. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Anjan. Abhi, you want to say something?
Yeah, yeah, that was a fantastic speech, sir, as an entrepreneur, co-entrepreneur. In fact, I was watching the clock that you should not, 5:30 should not come early. So that's so interesting, right? So interesting, and I could see the journey, right? It's a really fantastic thing, sir. I'm very happy and privileged that I could attend the session. Thanks for coming, sir, and accepting an invitation.
Questions? We have some time.
If someone else doesn't have a question, I have a few questions. At least one I'll ask.
Sure.
See, how you manage the mind, sir? You were telling that when you went to government with the social cause or the support is not coming through. How do you cope up with that, sir? Personally, we go down the same curve and how to maintain the, what do you call the attitude to come up again? You get so
See,
depressed sometimes.
no, that's exactly what I told you, that you have to enjoy the process, and each of it is you should take it as a process. That I have a very standard line when all these things come up with me, and that is what scares a lot of them. Which is why when they tell me point blank, they you're sort of disheartened, but at some level you're even elated, because I tell them that, sir, I'm writing my autobiography. I know this particular product will not make any money, but I'm sure my autobiography will make some money. Can I put your name here? So that's where they get totally thrown off.
That's great. That's a great suggestion. Right. You have any other new products in your pipeline, sir, which will be of use for the social cause, so that we can also participate in that?
Yeah. In fact, if you're Pune based, I've just been selected by the MOHUA, which is the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, to to give a solution for their sewage treatment plant. So I've been allotted Pune Municipal Corporation. So let me see. I'll make a product for that, and let's see what happens out of it. And if it is successful, then they said that they'll put it in the Smart City project of India.
Oh, great.
So, Anjan, most company people are Bombay based, Vasai, but I'm here in Pune. So
Okay.
we can meet up and let me know when you're coming. We can see this product which you're developing. In fact, we do a lot of work with municipal corporations, because sewage cleaning without a human entry is one of our product that we have, robotic crawler. So it probably it may have some synergy somewhere.
Yeah, but I work with water, and that's what I know now to some extent. Though a lot of ideas keep coming on and off, because I keep meeting very, very interesting and very inspirational people in my journey, and they keep giving you ideas. But I got only so much of time and so much of enthusiasm.
Yeah, I have one question. You spoke about this water jet with bubbles forming and kills the microbes. Now, microbes means there are three levels of microbes. I'll say is one is bacteria, which I'm sure with the size of the bacteria, I'm sure this process probably can kill all the bacteria, harmful bacteria. Then the second level, which is finer, is a single cell, which is amoeba. Amoebiasis is the biggest problem in India, and that's why the health is not as good as the Western countries. And the third level is virus. So does it have any this thing on amoeba? Is it possible to kill, or that escapes the sound waves?
It's not the sound wave; it's the shock
Sorry,
waves.
not sound wave. The uh,
Shock waves.
yeah, the shock wave.
Shock
Shock
waves.
shock wave, in my view, is always a sound wave anyway.
Okay. See, I really have not studied this in very great details or depth also. But having said that, wherever we have fitted it, and these are all the typical uh, waterborne diseases areas, and this is in Odisha, in Bihar, in UP. By the way, we have already impacted more than 1 million lives, and I've personally been to around 300 villages, and I take great pride in telling that after in my last 6 7 years I've visited 300 villages, which previously my only idea of a village was Hindi movie villages, but anyway, so that was and the instances of waterborne diseases has perceptibly come down. So
Oh,
now
very.
perceptibly come down. So I don't know. I think it is happening, but I don't know to what level it is happening. What is happening, I really don't know. I also know that a proper third party full scale study needs to happen. I had gone to IIT Bombay as well as NIRI in Nagpur, and very interestingly, both of them told me in writing that they will not be able to do this study because the IP does not belong to them. I said, I mean, that's a very strange this thing, because ultimately you're funded by the India government, which is like they're supposed to do all these things, but anyway, they must be having their own rules and own whatever. So that's where it is. But now I think it has gone slightly more. It's become slightly more involved. Very recently, the United Nations has got into the act, and they have sent my reactor to 4 African countries for trials. So my this thing is, I hope that India adopts it at scale through one of their schemes before the African nations do it, because then it will be quite a shame.
Yeah. Is this a product which is saleable in the sense? Is it only for social kind of work
No, no, no,
and
no.
distribution, or it has to go through government only, or is it also saleable in
It can be sold anywhere,
commercially?
but it can be sold commercially. But with a particular reason, I have done this particular product for India Mark II hand pumps only. And the reason is the India Mark II hand pump is typically bought by government because it's slightly more expensive. So all government hand pumps are India Mark II. And I don't know, it is a very interesting thing that anybody and everybody pokes a hole on earth and fits a hand pump. Now, those actually require a license, but no one takes it. And if I do a product which is meant for those people, I'll be actually doing encouraging an illegal activity. So I have not done it yet. Having said that, with this particular technology, I can do very many other things. And I'm developing a product for the piped water, which you can fit at your home or in a community or wherever there is these conditions exist. I'm trying to see which is the best entry point for this, because water is something which I've been told on and on and on. जो भी पानी में हाथ डुबाया उसका हाथ जल गया. So I said, okay, let me be slightly careful.
Okay, we invite you to our factory in Vasai. You will probably have lots of things to see there, and also to suggest us. And I don't know, maybe something can work in your mind and help us in our business. Number one, number two, we could also understand your product and do something worthwhile with it.
Sure.
Any other questions? Rajesh ji, will you do the honors?
Yeah, sir. If there are no more questions, we can close the session as we are already reaching the timelines. Anjan ji, thank you so much for having given this beautiful presentation today. It was really a worth of inspirational kind of thing for quite a young group what we have with Janyutech Technology and other audience. We look forward to have you again with some different topic in future as per your mutual convenience, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining today's session.
Thanks. Thanks a lot for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. We'll close the session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Anjan.
Thanks.